Welcome to Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Your Day with the Podcast brought to you by the Advocates Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, don't face it alone. Get an experienced local Wyoming attorney on your side. Free consultations at WyomingAdvocates.com or call 307-800-1952. You deserve an advocate. The Pacific will dominate the pattern this week across the western United States and for a lot of the U.S., at least here for the next 4 to 5 days or so. So we're going to enjoy very mild November weather. We saw a hint of that yesterday with the temperatures really rebounding, and that trend of above average temperatures will be found just about everywhere until we get a little cooler at the end of the week and a little bit cooler as we head on into the upcoming weekend. But a very fast moving Pacific jet stream wind will bring a series of Pacific systems into the Pacific Northwest, Western Canada, and these will straddle the U.S.-Canadian border. And so what this is going to do is going to send a couple of frontal systems through, especially late in the week. But they're going to move through so fast, they're really not going to have a chance to be too impactful, at least with precipitation. And although they will cause fluctuations in cold, you get mild Pacific air pushed out ahead of these systems. You get a little cooler air behind them, then you get another push of mild air again. And this is also going to lead to plenty of wind, unfortunately. We'll show you that here in a minute. And it really does look like the first 2 full weeks of November, more often than not, in the west, we're going to see a west to east Pacific flow. Now, that's going to change, as we hinted at you late last week. The second half of the month is a different animal. So you're going to see quite the contrast between the beginning and the first half of November to the ending and the second half of November, the way things are looking. We had some amazing cirrocumulus clouds this weekend. We had quite the display in many areas Saturday and again on Sunday, and as you'll see here in a moment, just a ton of colors with the sunrises, especially in this cloud formation. A great sky shot there from Jan Curtis. Now, there's a mouthful. If you want to know what the name of those clouds are, there it is. But you can see how high they are. We just had the right setup of upper-level moisture, strong jet stream winds aloft to be able to put that together. So we just had a lot of color. Look at that shot. All across the region from those cirrocumulus clouds coming in sheets, just putting on quite the color display, really all around the Intermountain West and across the western high plains. There's another panorama there. And then just a lot of color from Belle Fourche all the way over to Gillette, then back down into Cheyenne. Another great shot from Cheyenne. The southeastern Wyoming in particular area really put on quite the cloud display, but how's that for a shot along the Wyoming range? A lot of fall snow up into Wyoming's western mountains, putting on quite a show there. Beautiful shot underneath that high pressure ridge in Round Valley, California, that severe clear weather. Boy, look at that blue sky. Still got some color in a little bit of the cottonwoods in some areas, so some color hanging on. Another fair weather day in the Healy Reservoir area, northern Wyoming, and not even a ripple of water there in Monument, Colorado this weekend. And some high and mid-level clouds did give us a little bit of not only some high cirrus clouds, but some lenticular shape. And we're just into that lenticular season. There's a great shot there of course, one of the windiest areas around, the Elk Mountain area. Classic lenticular-shaped clouds just downwind of that big mountain there. The satellite imagery shows quite a bit of cloudiness and systems here lined up in the Pacific. But there's a big area of high pressure that's directing all of this up here. And that's how it's going to go this week. This weather out here is not going to have an opportunity to head to the Great Basin. We do have a little bit of cloudiness. We do have a little bit of an upper level low here, but that moisture you see is all in the high levels. It's really not going to do much as it heads this way. So the flow of the air is up here, and that is where it's going to stay at least through Thursday. And you can see that. So the 500 millibar chart, which is showing us winds and temperatures and conditions and pressures at 18,000 feet, is showing that west to east flow across the USA. There's a lot of cold air and a lot of storminess, as you can see, bottled up. But kind of think of this boundary right here as just basically holding back the Canadian air here and the Pacific air here. So if you're south of this boundary, you're just going to be in Pacific air, colder Canadian air up here. So there's going to be plenty of weather in Canada, but across the lower 48, at least through the first half of the week, all of these systems will come up and just straddle the U.S.-Canadian border, like what we're going to see here on Thursday. Now, today through Wednesday, it is going to be very mild. There will be a frontal system. Part of that storminess that I showed you on the satellite imagery breaks off, but it zips west to east. But it will bring in some cooler air. It's going to bring wind, and it will bring some showers to the northern Rockies and certainly the Pacific Northwest. Look at the speed of these. This is noon Thursday. This is noon Friday. That system overhead goes right into the Great Lakes, but there's another wave right behind it that's going to sneak in during the day Friday into early Saturday. So when you have perpendicular winds to the Continental Divide, strong winds aloft, you're going to have some windy areas. And there's going to be plenty of wind from the Pacific Northwest, Northern California into the plains. So we're going to have episodes of wind this week. There'll be a day where it won't be too windy. Then you'll have a day will be very windy. Then you'll have a break. Then the wind picks up again. The kind of these wind events will come along with those upper level disturbances racing along the U.S.-Canadian border. So we'll have some very mild temperatures for November, but it will come along with some high clouds and some strong gusty winds. And up along the U.S.-Canadian border, well, you can see where the path of these systems will go. There's going to be quite a bit of rain along the Pacific Northwest coast, Northern California, but the Cascades and the Sierras will soak up a lot of that. Although we'll have some good moisture up here, and we will see these waves Thursday and Friday bring some snow to Wyoming's northwest plateau, northwest mountains, western mountains, even the Bighorns, and we'll probably have a bit more in the way of snow shower activity in that late Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning time frame down here than the model is showing. But you can see where the path of all these systems are going. And a big part of the western United States not going to be getting really anything. Then by the weekend, we have an amplification of the flow. Now, this is going to lead to an amplification of the flow in the western United States about a week later. But notice this consolidation of colder air and low pressure in the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest. This is going to bring a pretty good shot of cold to the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and eventually the Northeast this weekend into early next week, while a temporary area of high pressure will develop over the west as we get to the end of the weekend. Then we see this building back up again, the cold, and another trough wanting to come into the Pacific Northwest. There's going to be a shot of winter this weekend into this part of the country here. And what the trend usually is when it gets cold in the Great Lakes in the northeastern United States, it's going to be high pressure in the west. And that's exactly what's going to happen. We have to let this run its course here to allow room for this up here to come into here, which is going to be that middle of the month time period. So you can see there's going to be some lake effect snows this weekend into early next week across the Great Lakes, even getting down into West Virginia here. Some snow up into the Dakotas and the upper Midwest and some freezing temperatures. Look at the snow that's falling and will be falling this week up into Canada. But we're going to be cut off from that with that flow of the jet stream going just like this, keeping us in Pacific air and locking up that Canadian air. And only into this part of the country here will that Canadian air intrude into the Great Lakes region. Have yourself a good Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.